Welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here.
Today we are bringing you a review of I Love Cats. We're in the middle of a series, the top 100 on BGG, and this is the next one that we've played and is on our list to cover for you guys.
It's going well. I'm having fun diving into these games, exploring them. For half of them, we're kind of doing gameplays or some other type of content alongside of them. This is going to be our review of the Isle of Cats, which is also on our Shelf or Sell segment, where Shira advocated the heck out of keeping it.
It has so much sentimental value. This was one of my intro games to the hobby. I played it a lot, and then it was a while since I've played it, and the fondness decreased.
We'll talk about that. Listen, here's going to be the overview of the game, or of the review. We're going to start with an overview of the game. We're going to break down what made it right for us and wrong for us throughout repeated plays, and then we're going to give you our final rating.
Also, in between that, we're going to talk about whether we think it belongs
should be in the top 100 of all time. Because, I mean, that's the fun of this, is just to look through the list and see what the world has ranked and where we fit alongside those. So, the Isle of Cats. The Isle of Cats is going to be a polyomino style game where you're doing your very best to take and place pieces onto various ships. These ships are going to have things like rooms, rats, and other types of objects on them that'll get you rewards as you play. The object of the game is to link a whole series of similar color cats onto your board according to a variety of different scoring traditions. The board itself has a few scoring traditions like filling in rooms or negative points for mice, but the cards, which is the second core mechanic of the Isle of Cats, is going to be where the game really falls or steps into place. The cards are going to be a drafting sequence.
Yes. You're going to be passing a hand of cards from person to person to person, and you're going to be taking 2 cards at a time. Some of the cards are going to allow you to collect cats or to have baskets. Other cards are going to be these lessons. These lessons can be lessons from everyone, or they can be private lessons, and they're going to be your main source of endgame points. They're going to tell you if you have X amount of purple cats, or if you have X amount of blue cats, or if you have a certain amount of treasures, or so many different things. If you've covered or left uncovered different numbers of rats, then you'll score extra points in the end of the game. And that's what the game comes down to, scoring the most amounts of points.
That's the 2 conditions. Yeah, you're going to be drafting 7 cards every round, taking 2 of them into your hand as scoring traditions that open up the floor to drawing in cats, placing them on your board, and then at the end of the game, you score according to those cards. It really is a combination of like Bunny Kingdom and Baron Park or another polyomino drafting
Project
game.
L, maybe? Yeah.
There's a few out there. I mean, there's a few polyomino games, right? It's a genre that people are familiar with. So, let's dive into this. Let's talk about what makes this right for us, and then we'll get to wrong for us.
Okay.
So what makes this game right for you?
I love polyomino. I love the puzzle. I love looking at a shape and figuring out where I am going to fit that shape. What am I going to fit around it? Using like little tokens, like extra treasures that you can get to fill in the one space that you missed. I love the polyomino puzzle. Additionally, drafting is probably my favorite card mechanic, both because you were choosing what you were taking for yourself, you were also choosing what you were refusing to pass along to another person. So if you look over and you see what they're doing on their ship, and you see that this card will just score them way too many points, you might keep it. You have to pay for all the cards you keep, so you might not keep it at the end, which is similar to my favorite game of all time, Terraforming Mars.
Sure.
But you might just deprive it from them. I like that system. I like that mechanic, and those are the things that I like. I think it's cute. Also, I just think the theme of it is cute.
I mean,
you're saving cats from the water.
It literally has a spot inside
for your pet cat. Yeah.
Where your cat is supposed to
We need to buy
stay.
a pet cat now because the game says we must put a pet cat.
The game does actually require it. Yeah.
I like the currency. The currency is fish because cats like fish. It's a cute thematic game.
Yeah, for me, what makes this game right for me? This is such an interesting, compelling game. It is messy and really probably one of the most open-ended polyomino-style games I know of. The different ways you can score, the different ways you can draft cats, how you build out your board, and the variability in the various different boards that you have give you a lot of pathways for some really interesting play. Every time I've played it, I've done different strategies, going straight for one cat, doing a strategy where I had points that scored for not covering up rats or not completing open spaces. And that changes the feeling and the nature of the game every time I sit down. I really like a lot of elements on this game. Now, that messiness introduces a bit of chaos from time to time, which might swing over into what makes me wrong for me. But I also agree with you. Polyomino is just a preference for me. I enjoy polyomino. It is fun, and I like the fact that the board gives you more locations that change your polyomino game as you're playing, right?
Yes, as you continue putting stuff
cover up.
in, you have new things you're trying to work around. Already the board is not a perfect square. It is like this.
The board's a weird shape. The locations that you want to cover up give you bonuses and benefits, and you might start off the game thinking you're covering all the rats, and then mid-game you take a card that scores you differently, and you have to do the math. You have to change your equation. And that not only changes... The polyomino puzzle is not only rich and rewarding, but the nature of how you're scoring your polyomino develops as you play. And I find that really refreshing. I really enjoy that. And the drafting's fun. It's not overly complicated. You think it's going to be because you're handing around this entire pile of cards, but when it comes down to it, you're making a decision between good and bad, and then a few limited resources like baskets that are going to give you the option to go ahead and draft cats. And I like the economy of it. It has that like Terraforming Mars style pay the resources that it costs to keep and use the cards that you decided to keep, or just discard them out of your hand so you can hate draft a little bit. And the crunch of economy on Fish is really tight. There's a lot here that I really like.
Yeah, it has actually, the more I think about it, the more similarities it has to Terraforming Mars. The thing that makes it the most different, though, is the complexity. I feel like it is a very simplified version of Terraforming Mars.
It's not. I mean, Terraforming Mars doesn't have any of this. You're just talking about the cards. Like, there's no production, there's no chaining, there's no...
Right. That's what I'm saying. It is a much more simplified version.
You're just drafting.
You're drafting, and you have to pay for the cards you keep with the economy. But there's no way to increase your economy. Very little ways. There's some cards that will allow you to get extra fish in middle. The part that I probably like the least is the randomness. The randomness of the cards. In Terraforming Mars, you start out usually with a strategy that you're going for. You start out with a company, and you start out with kind of a goal and a certain amount of money. You kind of have an idea of where you're going for, and then as you get more cards, you might change it a little. This, I found, like, halfway through the game, I would find cards that I would have taken a completely different strategy and done so much better with, but they only came out halfway through, and I could not have geared myself towards those. It was luck if I found, like, that I had been going for orange cats, and then I found a card that rewarded me for getting orange cats halfway through the game.
Now, the game it's actually most comparable to, though, the only thing that's comparable in Terraforming Mars is the fact that you pay economy to keep your cards. The thing that it's the most comparable to is going to be Bunny Kingdom. Bunny Kingdom is going to be this helter-skelter draft cards, and there's randomness to the way you score. There's randomness to what tiles you get. There's randomness to what cards you select as the hand passes around the table. And this reflects that type of drafting a lot.
Yeah.
And I like that drafting a ton in Bunny Kingdom.
But?
Not a strong but. I don't think it works as well here, partially because I don't think it's as complicated as the drafting in Bunny Kingdom is. In Bunny Kingdom, there's a little bit more variable ways to score, and you have a little bit more control over the regions that you're placing and kind of how you're spreading out.
I feel like in Bunny Kingdom, there are a lot more good cards for everybody, and also a lot more decent cards. Like, here there were, like, 1 or 2 good cards, and then a lot of mediocre cards. In Bunny Kingdom, there's, like, usually 10 good cards every single round.
That being said, I get crushed every time I play Bunny Kingdom, and I'm competitive in this game, so I don't know what that says about me or the people I'm playing with. Some of the stuff that maybe didn't work for me, it has to really solely do with a bit of the messiness, which is the same thing that you're hinting at. This is a little bit of a lighter game, and throughout the course of the gameplay, did you scratch off the sticker, by the way?
I was about to start.
You're thinking through that?
I am thinking through that.
Okay.
I have knives.
We have this whole poster here. You're supposed to scratch it off at the beginning of the video. Throughout the course of the gameplay, for me, I do find that there's a little bit too much wiggle room with how I'm scoring, how I'm grabbing cats. They're being drawn out of the bag. Don't know what cards are going to be coming to me, and some of them really do drive a lot of my final score. I don't think it's quite as flexible as what you're saying, which makes me actually like back off a bit. But if I had to play a game in this iteration, there's other polyomino games I think I would probably pick before it. And there's also other drafting games that I think I would pick before it. So the question is do you want to sit down with a drafting and polyomino game? And the answer for me is oftentimes no. But every now and then, especially once I'm currently playing it, the answer is yes. I am very charmed by this game. And it seems like...
It's a little cat.
Little cat on an island?
Yeah.
It seems like every time I play it, I become more and more charmed. And the farther I get away from playing it, the less I have a desire to pull it back off of the table.
I am the opposite. The farther away I get from it, I'm like, oh, sentimental value. That's such a fun game. We should play it again. And then as I play it, I'm like, there's so many more better polyomino games, so many better drafting games.
But nothing that combines it quite
I don't
like
really
this.
like to combine them.
There's not, as far as I know.
I agree. The combination, I think, is unique. I haven't seen many other games like this. But the two separate mechanics, there's plenty of games in each genre that do those mechanics better.
Yeah, there is an expansion coming out, and I am actually really invested in figuring out what that expansion adds. I know it's going to be a lot more variability when it comes to the boards, and I think some of these market cards are actually going to increase in difficulty. And so if that brings it up from a more intro lightweight game, which is where we kind of discovered it, up to a little bit more of like a complex advanced game system, I think this might be something that ends up having a permanent home on the shelf. It really depends on if this game gets more complicated.
Yeah.
Right now, it's a little too light combined with a little too messy, and that combination just doesn't quite work for either of us. Let's look at BGG.
Do you think it belongs in BGG?
Well, let's look at the stats. Let's look at where it is right now.
On our poster, it is actually hanging out at 97, but we checked up BGG stats before we started the video, and it went up.
It's at 95 right now, which means it's inching its way up. It's number 76 on strategy and number 10 on family right now, which I think makes sense.
I think that makes sense. I think it is a fantastic family weight game, and if I played more games with families, I would want this in my collection.
It says that it is best at 3.
Okay. 4 had a little bit too much downtime. We played it last at 4.
Yeah. Which I don't know that I would disagree with. I need to check if the solo mode is widely loved or not. I need to check if it's even recommended at solo. Weight is at 2.13. So
sense.
like we said, a little bit on the lighter side. Age is 8+. So let's dive in. Do we think it deserves to be on the top 100?
I actually, as harsh as I'm being on it, I think it does. I think it is a great family weight game. And the top 100 is not just for all the heavy games in the genre. There's plenty of heavy games on here. I think this does a really great family-style game. Getting you introduced to the concept of drafting, getting you introduced to the concept of polyominoes, and different scoring objectives, end-game scoring, in-game scoring, and managing your currency. I think it does a really great job of these skills.
I'm conflicted on this one because I think part of the reason why it is here is because they did the smart thing with the theme, and they chose a theme that is that
you think the theme, the cat theme?
I think a lot of the success of this game.
Is Calico up here?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was somewhere, but maybe not. I think a lot of the success of the theme is the fact that the internet loves cats, and you're taking cats and placing cats, and the front of the cover is covered with cats, and the name has cats, and you have tiny little cat meeples. And I don't mean to write off how good the game is, but with it being, I mean to actually compliment how smart the designers were and how smart the publisher was when it came to releasing a game that was targeted at an audience, targeted at a family weight, gamer level, and they chose to go with something unique in the polyomino space. And I think by the nature of that, I think it both does deserve to be in the top 100, while at the same time, I don't know that it would be in my top 100.
I would agree with that.
Which is a conflict, which is something different from some of the other titles we've had on the list.
It's definitely not in my top 100, but I think in the scheme of family games, like if I was thinking about the 10 family weight games that I would want to have in my collection, I do believe this would be one of them.
Yeah, like I said, I am really invested in finding out what the expansion has, because I'm compelled by that. If it brings it up to a 2.8 or a 2.9 on the difficulty scale.
I like the Oshax. We barely talked about them, but they're a special type of cat
super pretty
that
cats.
These actually sit on to determine the color that the cat.
Very pretty wild cats that basically fill out your board. That's how you get these pretty meeples. I'm just a bit conflicted.
Okay.
Because it might actually be in my top 100. I'm not sure. This game throughout the duration of its life in my collection has confuddled me. The farther I get away from it, the less I think I need it in my collection.
But then once you play
then we play it, and I think it's lovely, and it does what it does so well, and it does things that I think are a lot of fun. But then I have to ask, would I choose to play Bunny Kingdom over it? Would I choose to play Baron Park over it? Bunny Kingdom's going to be yes. Baron Park? Yes. Feast for Odin? It's debatable. Baron Park is debatable in the weight. Feast for Odin is a little too heavy. While I like the game more, for a polyomino
Wow.
experience, I think this gets to the table easier.
So I'm curious what your final rating is.
Yeah, I'm curious too what my final rating is. So let's do this. So we're going to round our ratings up to the 10-point scale, but we stick with a 5-point scale. Basically, 1 is a bad game we never want to play again.
2 is a game that's just not for us.
3 is going to be a game that's really good.
It's
It's a solid game, and we'd be happy to play it if other people were asked.
4 is a great game, but it has meaningful critiques from the gameplay experience.
Yep. And then 5 is not going to be a perfect game, but it is an amazing game
Absolutely
for
fan-freaking-tastic game that you always want to play.
That you always want to play, and does not have meaningful critiques that take away from the gameplay experience specifically.
I just realized something. It's totally off topic here, but another game that we've been playing a lot recently has jumped up to a 5.
Ooh, what is that?
What game have I been asking you to play time and time again?
Has it jumped to a 5?
Because I mean, as we go through our list categories, I'm like,
Cool.
I want to continue playing that.
Cool. I love it.
That's crazy.
I love it. Let's rate this game, though.
This is going to be a 3.
A 3 for you.
Yeah.
So good game. You're happy to play it.
I'm happy to play it. It's a good game, and I think as I move into the time period of my life where I have more kids around and family, I will probably want to get it back, and I will probably bump up to a 3.5 at that point.
I would have no problem including this. Like, we need to go ahead and jot it down. I think this should be on a, 10 essential games every family should own.
Yeah.
Because the theme is accessible. It's open.
Yeah.
It teaches you the base of the game. I think for me, it's going to be a high 3. I'm talking like a 3.8 or so. For the sheer reason that because of its accessibility.
So like a 6.9, 7?
No, I'm talking.
Even higher, because 3.5
Yeah.
rounded. So
So
7.
if we went to the BGG scale, I'm
Yeah.
like 7.5
All right.
or a 7.
I'm like a 6.2.
Okay, and then yeah, I mean when it has a few meaningful critiques, and I think again.
With the expansion.
I'm really interested.
You're pretty close to the BGG.
It's at a 7.9 on BGG based off of the audience, which I think makes sense with where this ranks with the type of families that are getting this to the table.
Yeah.
I am not surprised at all by why people absolutely love this game.
Yeah.
The crux for me is whether or not I do. And I'm still, let me know down in the comments down below. Do I love this game? I'm not sure yet.
Oh.
I know I'm going to try it solo before we get rid of it.
Okay.
You said we're probably going to send it to a friend because the expansion's not coming in for a while.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'll grab a pledge of that when it comes in.
Yeah.
We have a friend that'll table it pretty consistently.
Yep.
And for you, you're not asking to get it to the table.
Correct. And unless you're asking for it, and there's plenty of other games that you're asking for.
So I'm gonna test out the solo mode before we give it to someone who'll get it to the table quite often. But I think this is one that's going to come back into our collection.
Oh, I definitely think we'll see it
within
again.
the next year. I highly anticipate.
I would say
Well, the
a couple
expansion's
years.
coming this year.
Is it?
Yeah.
Have they launched it yet?
It's already funded and everything.
Okay, fine.
It should be arriving.
Cool.
And so I fully expect to be getting another
Yeah.
copy of this once that happens because I want to see what else they do with it.
So do I.
Cool. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Remember to subscribe down below because we've got a top 100 list we're going through. And whatever you do, make sure you do the most important thing. Click on the video links. There's a pile of them right now. They're popping up. There's a subscribe button right here. There's so many things you can...
Thank you.
Thank you.